Hello, dear friends. I believe that the fakir's path would be the best allegory of the difficulties that humanity is currently going through, with hard masochistic exercises of economic mortification. And that is why the first objective would be to try to remain serene in the midst of the storm. Opinion piece. The way of the fakir, sitting on pins and needles, had exercises of mortification. It is a tough fight to wake up. This week can be very lively. The stock market is a house of cards. The market is now in an epic bubble. When you lose faith in gold, you worship many gods. When you lose faith in the dollar, many currencies appear. Bitcoin is up 13% and ethereum is up 43% in a week. The world's richest economies are beginning the transition. Digital Dollar project to launch 5 pilot currency programs. Look at the dice. Watch the clues and connect the dots to see global change. The sooner we change beliefs, the sooner we can change reality. If you want to see what you want, you must believe in what you don't see in order to manifest it. Let's start. There are 2 ways to reach our destination: a straight line on a twist, or a twisting and turning road full of rocks, bumps, and curves to wake up to the force. The human species seems to have chosen the more difficult path when it resists the inevitable change. But we can reduce the suffering if we go through it with love and detachment, and time becomes shorter. Rest easy, my friends. It could be a lively week ahead. Rumor has it that this week will bring big actions or revelations. We shall see what happens. Protests continue worldwide. Desperation is palpable and governments are very nervous and out of control. It's also the return of the planet Pluto about 250 years later, exactly at the same time the Illuminates were created. As the Atlantis report opines, critical events would be happening very fast all over the world as markets cool down and political unrest intensifies. It would all be part of a Great Depression. When people lose everything and have nothing to lose, they would lose it, and the markets would be losing it too. The global slowdown would accelerate and the stock markets would fall as companies prepare for periods of economic uncertainty. Maricopa County officials are scanning audits with ultraviolet light. Exactly 1 year ago, on April 24, Trump mentioned killing the invisible enemy with ultraviolet light. Preparations. All indications are that we are already in the prolegomena of the withdrawal of the dollar as the world's reserved currency, said Stacy in the Kaiser report, not without venturing that this would benefit the vast majority of the population. A prolegomenon is a treatise placed at the beginning of a work or piece of writing to establish the general foundations on the subject matter to be dealt with later. But it could also be a preparation, an excessive or unnecessary introducing of something. And that is why we say in Spain, leave the prolegomena and get to the point. On the other side, Marx states that these changes have been going on for half a century or even longer. He believes that the US is enriching other countries, such as China, at the cost of impoverishing itself for 40 years. He is of the opinion that when Europe ceased to be an empire and abandoned its colonial possessions, the quality of life of its inhabitants increased. If the world's reserve currency were no longer the dollar, if we were to abandon the debt empire and close the 400 or 500 military bases we have around the world that do nothing more than polish off the state's money, the quality of life of Americans would skyrocket. Max believes. In quotes. All of these were in quotes. Fed talks trouble. The US economy is not out of the woods yet. Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell said Monday in comments that pointed to an upcoming central bank study documenting the disproportionate hit suffered by less educated parents and workers during the healthcare crisis. But dollar holds steady for now. The dollar clung to a recent rebound on Monday as investors cautiously began a week packed with central banks meetings and important economic data, waiting for clues on the global inflation outlook and responses from policymakers. A difficult path. Humankind seems to be following the path of the fakir. It is a very difficult path to develop willpower and overcome pain throughout suffering, going throughout very hard trials. The whole path of the fakir is made of incredibly painful physical exercises. They keep standing in the same position without any movement for hours, days, months, and years, or sitting on a bare stone under an implacable sun, in the rain, in the snow, etc. They keep their arms outstretched for an indefinite time, or they torture themselves with fire or with an anthill on which they put their bare legs, and so on and so forth. Right now we are sitting on nails, pins and needles, and we may have a very lively week ahead of us, with actions or revelations. Desperation is palpable, protests continue globally, and personal finances are in the dumps. People continue to wake up and more openly show their discontent with the tyrannical edicts that world governments are trying to enforce. They are learning that they do not need permission to live their lives as they see fit. The war for planet Earth is becoming more public, and this is what it has come to, my friends. You will do anything to stop what is coming. It is happening painfully slow, but it is happening. Definition. A fakir is an ascetic or marabout who practices hard mortification exercises. In Muslim culture, he performs physical and mental endurance challenges, such as walking on fire or glass, putting torches or knives in his mouth, or lying on beds with nails in them. The term, original Islamic, spread to Indian culture. They are also sometimes considered artists. They are very poor and pray for everyone else, equivalent to a monk in Christian culture who practices harsh penances. According to Gurdjieff, the fakir seeks total mastery over the bodily. The monk seeks the development of feeling. The yogi pursues the perfection of the mind, transcending the characteristic duality in which it struggles, making it fit to receive knowledge. But the fourth path, the path of the astute and balanced mind, leads to the perfection and harmonious development of all the centers of the human machine, throughout the awakening of consciousness, working with the physical body simultaneously with emotions and thoughts. Has it begun? Lynette Thang of ITM Trading says the financial reset has begun, and it's not a one-time event. It is an ongoing cycle that plays out over the life cycle of a fiat currency. She said, "We are at the end of the dollar's life cycle, and that the reset will continue to unfold into a massive money printing agenda." What she describes as a reset is actually a wealth transfer. When the wealth transfer is complete, the currency reset will be complete. The current crisis could destroy the economy of every nation on earth, plunge humanity into despair and poverty, and then she offers her magic solution, the Great Davos Forum reboot or restart. But I believe that this project cannot succeed because it is opposed by Russia and China. The essence of this grand reset would be that all the debt of every human being would be cancelled, which would save us from the financial devastation resulting from the shutdowns. Having all debt cancelled surely sounds like a wonderful solution. However, this project would have a catch, as it would come with a price tag. In exchange for this financial bailout, everyone would have to give up all private property. From that point on, no one would own anything anymore, and we would all rent everything, cars, houses, etc. But I have already said that I don't think this will happen. Join the dots. Look at the dice. Look at the clues and connect the dots. ISO 20022 enables the electronic exchange and automation of data between organizations in the financial sector using a common language, with the aim of streamlining the communication, reducing risk, and avoiding significant losses. New quantum financial system. Only currencies that pass international regulation would remain 99.5% of them would not survive, including Bitcoin, when the servers shut down under the Three Gorges Dam. Then new elections using this technology around the world. Election of governments 10%, the size of what they are after their military forced resignation. The Silver Report states that breakneck inflation cannot be hidden for long, and Jerome Powell just stated that he intends to allow inflation to exceed 2% to make up for lost inflation, and said that his new term will average 2% inflation. During a currency collapse, it is typical for a nation to use multiple currencies, as fiat currency requires faith. Once a nation begins to lose faith in a currency, there is little can be done to shore it up. Many smart people suggest this is impossible and perhaps in the old world, but this is the new one. Janet Yellen has just told the G20 to start buying more special drawing rights, which are an IMF world currency. This means that the world's richest economies are beginning the transition from the dollar. Silver and gold, along with privacy currencies, will be essential to protect against the dollar collapse as those international dollars come back. Epic bubble. The 2021 stock market is in an epic bubble like 1929, according to the Atlantis report. The stock market is a house of cards. Unemployment figures are inaccurate. It may sell and go away, goes saying. The correction begins. The fall would be faster and harder than anyone could imagine. There are no models that could include mass panic. Therefore, no one could now exactly know how it would happen. The best buys were the March 2000 crash, the March 2009 banking crash, and the March 2020 COVID crash, roughly every decade or so in March. It was Bernanke who said the housing market was not overvalued just before its collapse. You can only flatten the yield curve by buying treasuries to a certain extent. If this decline continues on Monday, an exit strategy would be implemented. Sell all companies that have less than 5 billion market cap. These are lower quality stocks that will suffer a substantial correction in the near term. You will not be able to handle supply and labor shortages when the economy reopens, and if inflation continues to rise, it could eventually wipe out earnings. If the Fed were to inflate assets 100% by devaluing the dollar, wealth wouldn't be generated. Purchasing power or asset value hasn't changed. Capital gains taxes should be reduced by inflation. Otherwise, it would be outright theft by the monetary system. Digital currencies. US wants to take the lead on central bank digital currencies. A former financial regulator says the US needs to step up its research on a central bank-issued digital currency as the Federal Reserve explores the feasibility of a digital dollar. Digital Dollar Project to launch 5 central bank digital currency pilot projects. The Digital Dollar Project, a US non-profit organization, said Monday it will launch 5 pilot programs over the next 12 months to test the potential use of a central bank digital currency, the first such effort in the United States. The private sector pilots will be funded by Accenture plc and involve financial firms, retailers, and NGOs, among others. The goal is to generate data that can help policymakers develop a digital dollar. Ether reaches $3,000. Bitcoin's dominance of the total value of the cryptocurrency market is waning, as its next biggest rival, Ether, reaches the $3,000 milestone. Ethereum surged higher than Bitcoin. Bitcoin rose about 13% higher than the previous week, as Ethereum soared 34% in 7 days. Ethereum, I think the pronunciation is better. Ethereum outperforms Bitcoin. Ethereum prices hit another record high on Monday, breaking the $3,000 barrier and tripling its year-to-date gains amid the continued rise of global cryptocurrencies. Ether, the digital token used for transactions on the Ethereum blockchain, has more than doubled year-to-date gains for Bitcoin as investors navigate toward the non-fungible token market amid a broader shift toward decentralized finance. Ethereum's scalable blockchain, which many technologists say is newer and more nimble than the one used by Bitcoin, has been part of its appeal to investors, as has the fact that its supply is not limited in the manner of its larger rival, which has capped issuance at 21 million. Bitcoin shortcomings. Bitcoin is to the crypto market what Netscape was to search engines in the early days of the internet. A better solution is needed, and the market is responding. The real innovation in the cryptocurrency market is now taking place in decentralized finance and primarily ethereum-based infrastructure that underpins it. Warren Buffett's right-hand man criticizes Bitcoin. Charlie Munger, vice-chairman of Berkshire Hathaway Financial Holding Company, called Bitcoin, in quotes, repugnant and contrary to the interest of civilization, close quotes, during a question session at Berkshire's annual shareholder meeting. Gold marked first gain in 5 sessions. Gold futures rise sharply Monday as a weaker dollar and subdued government bond yields helped revive some volume buying after a streak of weekly declines marked on Friday. Europe. Recession returns to the Eurozone. The Eurozone slips back into recession. Gross domestic product contracted by 0.6% in the first quarter of 2021 after falling by 0.7% in the preceding quarter. US GDP, however, grew by 1.6% over the previous quarter. More poverty in Europe. In recent decades, Italy's national wealth has become increasingly concentrated in the hands of the wealthy, while the share of the poor has been inexorably decreasing, aggravating economic inequality in the country. The rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer. It is an old adage that may even sound demagogic, but in recent decades of Italy seems to confirm its validity. Europe's powerful earnings fail to move the needle for investors. European companies are delivering one of the best earnings seasons on record. The problem is that it is not enough. After driving the region's stocks to a record high in anticipation of recovery, investors are turning tepid just as companies generally beat expectations, indicating that much of the good news is already priced in. Negative rate debacle. In Denmark, commercial banks have had to absorb negative rates since the central bank first introduced them in 2012. By 2019, the industry began sharing the cost of that policy with retail depositors. Today, the Danes are the world champions in bearing the brunt of negative rates along with their banks, with 35% of deposits affected. Protests in the Netherlands. About 1,000 people took the streets to protest against the Dutch government's handling of the health crisis. With yellow umbrellas and without masks, the protest, entitled A Walk for Freedom, called for an immediate lifting of strict measures they consider anti-democratic. France begins a gradual deconfinement. France began on Monday a gradual deconfinement that plans to lift almost all restrictions by the end of June, and that has as its first stage to return to classroom attendance of secondary and high school students at the end of the restrictions on domestic trips. Greece reopened bars and restaurants. Greece allowed restaurants and bars to open from Monday, as it took a further step to ease restrictions ahead of the scheduled start of the tourist season on May 15th. The Roman Colosseum will recover its arena in 2023. The Colosseum in Rome will rebuild its arena. The stalls where gladiators fought in 2023, thanks to a project marked by eco-sustainability to improve the visit to this emblematic building. The aim is to provide the Flavian Amphitheatre with a floor, as it lost its original one over the centuries, leaving its sanded grounds in the open air to this day, except for a small part of about 600 square meters still covered. Colombia's finance minister resigns after tax reform protests. Colombia's finance minister Alberto Carrasquilla reportedly resigned on Monday morning, a day after President Ivan Duque asked Congress to withdraw the tax reform bill amid protests against its implementation. East. European Union expand aid package to India with contributions from Spain and from other countries. The European Commission announced Monday that it is increasing its humanitarian aid to India to alleviate the severe spread of the plague in the country after Spain, Denmark, the Czech Republic, Germany and the Netherlands joined to the aid package mobilized by the European Civil Protection Mechanism. Afghan woman punished with 40 lashes for talking to a man on the phone. In the Afghan town of Haftgola, near Herat, an illegal Taliban court sentenced the woman to 40 lashes. The young woman was accused of having allegedly had immoral relations because she spoke on the phone with a man who was also arrested and is being held in a Taliban prison. The Middle East is reorganizing itself according to Thierry Mason, divided not by their own will but by the powers that colonized the region. The countries of the Middle East are reorganizing themselves according to their own logic. Of course, the new alliances are still fragile, but the Western powers will have to get used to them. Bizarre news. British military successfully test flying suits. The aeronautical company Gravity Industries showed last Sunday the successful test of its flying suit carried out by the British Royal Marine Corps to support boarding operations. The images of these Ironman simulations, which took place in the English Channel, show that the future of military operations could look like that. 4 astronauts successfully returned aboard the Dragon capsule. 4 astronauts successfully returned from the International Space Station in the Dragon capsule. This is the first joint operation between SpaceX, manufacturer of the Dragon capsule, and NASA. NASA acknowledges that a UFO almost hit the SpaceX rocket. The launch of the SpaceX Crew Dragon capsule went smoothly, but the crew of 4 astronauts experienced an incident while en route in the International Space Station when they were notified of a possible collision with a UFO. The possibility of impact was so real that there was no time to calculate and execute an evasive maneuver. So the SpaceX team decided to have the crew don their pressure suits as a precaution. Excuse me. Galactic technology. We got a lot of technology from the star visitors that the clique kept to themselves and didn't share with us. We will soon have access to some miraculous things. Don Carlos from Marbella says that the holographic beds are currently being manufactured in Texas and Florida, but gives no further information, although some photos have been published that look real. Hospitals around the world are suffering cyber attacks. They are shutting down selective surgeries and other cancer treatments. Medical beds are on the way out. The Galactic Federation has responded to a plea for loving help so that whole humanity has the right to live according to divine natural law, which is to live in service to others unconditionally and externally. They say that the holographic medical beds will be released ahead of a schedule. War of Beliefs. According to Ivo de Vega via Sharon Stewart, there is a war of beliefs. The first milestone in TRIP was the quantum financial system, which has already been implemented. The disruption and dissolution of the old fiat monetary system is underway and will progress as it is allowed to do so. The more people realize that their money comes from this new source, the QFS, the more the old system will collapse. If one believes it is what it always was and no change has been made, then the old system will prevail for them. Believe it. Change your thinking to align with this truth. What system do you want to provide your income? You now have a choice. That makes sense. They call this a war of consciousness. And when you think about how consciousness works in the lower dimensions, we call consciousness beliefs. So we have to change our belief system. We are being given information to reconfigure our beliefs. However, this information aligns with truth and God. You create your reality, and you are allowed to have whatever beliefs you wish to have. The information that has come to you through the alternative community and throughout the coalition has guided us on how to make the right choice and positive belief. Think of this as a large screen with events on the earth unfolding before you. While you are there, you must choose what you wish to align with, what you wish to believe. You were told that the QFS was operational. Also, the new system can hack any government computer system it wishes, and that eventually everyone will be paid throughout the new system, not the defunct trust system. We simply ask you to change your beliefs on whether you want to follow the agenda or not. And we have always told you to put your creative energies into creating the timeline you wish to see for Earth. However, the disinformers have created confusion around the QFS, and you have been trained to believe what you see. You believe that if nothing has changed, nothing has changed. That doesn't work for you, and you must dispense with it. You must believe what you don't see. If you want it to be true, believe it. Create that belief system. Obviously, since the Matrix uses chaos and confusion to keep people trapped in their belief system, we are fulfilling their efforts to create chaos with peace in hopes of freeing as many on the brink of falling as possible. However, keep in mind that not all people can be saved. There are some who are inherently evil and others with a frequency too low to believe in God. We are helping as many as possible. Thanks a lot, dear friends.